Hello, everyone. My name is Helen Tong, and I'm going to present you the study Professor Kilim Nam, Chinsanan, and myself have been conducting on the Korean COVID-19 neologism that appeared in news articles and users' comments. So I believe it is the same in your respective countries, but given the scale of a COVID-19 pandemic, it has been one of the main topics in newspapers and probably across any conversations in general. And of course, being a hot topic, it has led to a multitude of neologisms, some of which could definitely be considered as new cultural keywords of today's society. Our study investigates the usage trends of these neologisms in the course of a pandemic and examines how the results of a study can be integrated in the dictionary definitions of such neologisms. Next, I will explain the methodology and talk about the general characteristics of the COVID-19 neologisms. And after that, I will focus on the case of a neologism K-방역 or K-quarantine in English. And finally, in the last section, I will present a macrostructural model for these COVID-19 neologisms based on our study. So for the methodology, we first combine a list of 341 neologisms related to COVID-19 based on the two previous studies that you can see here on the screen. So these two studies extracted the neologisms from news articles only, which means that the language is somewhat more measured as opposed to the spontaneous language of internet users. So in this study, we also looked into users' comments in addition to news articles, and we decided to include all types of language, including pejorative expressions. And of course, we also added neologisms that appeared after August 2020, which is the last month of extraction in both studies. So to analyze the usage patterns of our neologisms, we built the COVID-19 corpus that is made of news articles and the related comments posted by users. So this corpus is divided into those two subcorpora, the article corpus and comment corpus, which are compiled monthly, as monthly corpora from 1st January 2020 to 31st March 2021. The corpus is based on the criterion that the word corona, which stands for COVID in Korean, must appear at least 3 times on the news page. So as you can see on the table, even if a comment is much shorter than an article, the scale of a comment corpus is much bigger. For our case study, we carried out a network-based collocation analysis. So we first analyzed the primary collocates within a left to right to window by targeting content words only. And then we analyzed the secondary collocates of K-quarantine, meaning the collocates of the primary collocates. The scope of the analysis covers, of the secondary collocate analysis covers the whole sentence or the whole comment in the case of comments. And we focused on adjectives only because in Korean, adjectives function like verbs, and the verb is placed at the end of a sentence. So they are not easily captured in the primary collocate analysis. Then to get an even bigger picture, we conducted a morpheme-based Engram analysis focusing on high-frequency verbs and adjectives as the heads of the engrams. So we classified the COVID-19 neologisms into 12 categories, semantic categories. And as you can see here, the predominant semantic categories are politics and administration and health and medicine as expected. So these includes policy names such as emergency disaster relief fund or travel bubble, and the neologisms related to physical and psychological health, such as K-testing kit and Corona Blue. You can also see that lifestyle, economy, and society are also important domains with respect to COVID-19 neologisms. So, for example, you have neologisms such as corona divorce, vaccine holiday, stuck at home era, coronomy shock, and working at home in hotels. Well, I believe that there are many similar neologisms in our language. So now, if we look at the 35 most frequent neologisms, we can see indeed that many of them, many of these high-frequency neologisms that I highlighted in blue here, relate to some political and medical measures to manage the impact of a pandemic. So you can see that this is especially the case for news articles. There are 22 neologisms in pink here that are common to both news articles and comments. However, the frequency ranking and the usage patterns vary greatly depending on the genre. So you can see, for example, here, the most frequent neologism in comment, it's K-quarantine, but it ranks 11th in the articles. And the attitudes about it are also quite contrasted, between articles and comments. So in K-quarantine, K stands for Korea, and K-quarantine refers to a system of preventive measures to contain the pandemic. And that includes safety booths, drive-through testing, contact tracing, and even free delivery of food, instant food, to people who are self-isolating at home or in hotels. So this neologism, K-quarantine, first appeared in February 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, when most countries seemed to struggle with quarantine, but South Korea established this rather effective system for which it was praised even by the international community. However, the evaluation of K-quarantine varies greatly depending on the timing and especially on the genre where it is evaluated. So this table shows 30 most frequent primary collocates of K-quarantine occurring within the L2R2 window. If you look at the exclusive collocates highlighted in blue, we can already see the evaluation tendency that are characteristic of each genre. So in the case of articles, exclusive keywords such as achievement, role model, excellence, and standard show a positive evaluation, while in the comments, evaluations sound more negative with collocates such as self-praise, failure, true color, and make noise, for example. Among the common collocates, like the collocates common to both articles and comments, we have words such as government, success, and corona, but it is hard to really grasp the nuances in evaluation behind these collocates. Because, as I mentioned earlier, the L2R2 window is too narrow to include adjectives which are more likely to convey people's attitudes and emotions. So in order to cope with this issue, we carried out a secondary collocate analysis and an Engram analysis. For the secondary collocate analysis, we focused on the primary collocate vaccine. And if you look at the exclusive secondary collocates in blue, once again, articles are dominated by positive adjectives such as strong, prompt, outstanding. And in the comments, you have more depreciative adjectives such as incompetent, late, and pathetic. In the collocate lists for users' comments, we can also see that there's a number of positive adjectives such as good, impressive, and proud. But if we look closer at the concordances, we realize that they are quite often used in sarcasms to mock the K-quarantine or criticize the government's policies. Of course, the picture is not all black and white, and there are a few examples of positive evaluation with the adjectives good and impressive, but in most cases, they are used in negative contexts, and all the instances of the adjective proud in the comments are sarcasms. The last stage of analysis is the Engram analysis, and this table shows the top 15 5-grams for each subcorpus. In the case of articles, most of the Engrams are extracted from public statements by government spokesperson and quarantine authorities, so they contain a lot of positive evaluations about K-quarantine, as you can see in the Engram that I have highlighted in red. The Engrams extracted from the comments, on the other hand, tend to show people's disbelief and frustration and even anger, as shown in the examples highlighted in green. Even some of the Engrams in the comments sound more neutral, as you can see in the number 3 and number 7. If we look at the concordance, we can see that they're actually used in a negative context, as you can see here. So all in all, the Engram analysis shows even more of a contextual meaning of the neologisms, and it also, at the same time, confirms the differences in usage between articles and comments, which had been outlined by the secondary collocate analysis. So the case study of K-quarantine showed that a same neologism, a same headword candidate can have different values when used in different genres. Even if comments do not represent perfectly the whole language, they still provide real-life examples of spontaneous subjective evaluation, which cannot be seen in news articles. And this is why user-generated examples can be useful in the selection of neologism headwords and the description in the dictionary. As of now, Korean lexicography, in Korean lexicography, the examples are mostly taken from literary works. So the neologisms that are currently represented in dictionaries usually have examples, or the examples would come from the official language of the press rather than practical language. So this last section shows 2 examples of what a dictionary entry for COVID-19 neologisms could be if we incorporate the insights provided by comments. But first, I need you to look at this table again. These are the 35 most frequent neologisms. And I have highlighted here the various appellations for COVID-19. So if we look closer at the frequencies, we can see that there are 3 appellations that are more frequently used than the official name of a disease in the articles here, you can see. And by far, the appellation that is the most common is Corona-19, which is actually the short version of the official name. But in the comments, you can see that the official name is barely used, and instead there are a lot of different names that are used, and many of them are strongly biased and officially disapproved. So they are not, they are almost inexistent in the articles. However, you can see that you still have a case of Wuhan pneumonia, which has a fairly high frequency, while it becomes to those names that have been proscribed. So to understand this hiccup, we need to look into the monthly usage of the word. So in this graph, the blue curve, which corresponds to the article frequencies, shows that the name Wuhan pneumonia was used extensively at the very beginning of the pandemic, but after the WHO banned geographical references in disease names in February 2020, it almost completely fell out of usage. And the red curve for the users' comments show also like a sharp decrease, but it also shows that it was still, it remained in usage. And you can even notice like some increases like here and there, which actually corresponds to the various waves of the pandemic. Up until now, Korean neurology research has focused on news articles for the extraction of neologisms, but this example shows that the diversity of genres is crucial in determining the establishment of a neologism and its inclusion in the dictionary. In other words, the use of comments as language resource may prove essential for the extraction of neologisms and potential headword candidates. But however, as you all know, internet users do not have any filters. So using this kind of data may also raise some ethical issues to be considered and solved by language experts. In the case of Wuhan pneumonia, despite the word being controversial and offensive, if we consider the usage trends and the frequency distribution in articles versus comments, we believe that this neologism should be integrated into the macrostructure of a dictionary for information purposes, provided that appropriate pragmatic information is there. So this is an example of entry for the term. And you can see that here on the right side, we added the metalinguistic information to explain the different components of the macrostructure. So given the controversial nature of this neologism, the register, social cultural context, and usage information are more than crucial. So now to come back to K-quarantine, actually, there is a dictionary entry for K-quarantine that has been proposed by a user on the online dictionary Rudimentsem, which is one of the main Korean language dictionaries. And this headword candidate is still under revision by language experts right now. So it is not officially part of the dictionary. So you can see in this definition that it is quite short, and I have highlighted the corresponding elements with the one that we suggest here. And actually, the word COVID-19 is even not mentioned in the user's definition. So we have seen in our case study that when neologism was used in very different ways in articles and in comments. And the inclusion of examples from users' comments not only allows us to provide examples of language spoken in real life, but it also offers a glimpse into, I wouldn't say yet the semantic prosody of the neologism, but at least into the typical evaluation context where it is used. So to conclude, this study has shown that the raw language of commenters, which has been dismissed in neology research and by lexicographers in Korea, proves to be more than valid as a language resource in the lexicographic selection and description of neologisms. So these are the references, and thank you for your attention.